It's a very good question. I can only give you answer from the perspective of poor countries, which is what I know best. I couldn't comment really on the scene here in Italy or. The reason the question is very good is because in some ways to think about the question or reflecting on the question is best to work backwards. So you've asked profits, non-profit. And I think there's something key out here because for the market to work well or approximately well, profits of firms should be, roughly speaking, in line with social profits, not just private profits. Of course, the private firm is concerned with private profit. Question is the private profit approximately the social profit of the activities of the firm? By social profit, I mean now, I don't mean anything metaphysical, by the way. I mean something very, very straightforward. I mean profits that would accrue to the firm if the firm was paying for all the costs of production. Let's just look at it that way. Okay? Now, in the contemporary world, a great deal of our activities are non-marketed, even in a market situation, are non-priced, in fact. Many commodities that firms use, they don't pay for it. It could be water in some place because the water is free. It could be electricity, which is subsidized in India, for example, amongst farmers. But most important, interestingly, is all the carbon dioxide you emit into the atmosphere. No, you're not being charged for it. But of course, that's a cost. That's a cost because it induces climate change, which currently we believe is not a very good thing. So the profits that a firm records in its profit statement are an overestimate of the true profits that should be there if the markets were working well. If there was a price for the carbon it emits, like it's a price that it has to pay, or the effluent that it generates and dumps into the lake or river or whatever. So the first thing to notice is that the question regarding sustainability is deeply connected to the fact that many inputs in the production of goods and services are unpriced. So firms don't have to pay for it, even though they're scarce goods. So they use too much of it, like the atmosphere is used too much as a sink for carbon. The lakes are too frequently used as a dumping ground, or the oceans are a dumping ground because nobody has to pay to dump stuff into the open seas. It's very hard to monitor it, by the way, because who's going to go around following a ship? So that's the first thing to notice. The second thing to notice is that at a small level, non-profit organizations are very often called communities. And in poor countries, in villages, communities have managed their local resources in a communitarian way as opposed to having them privatized and then allowing private enterprises to operate. I'm thinking now of local forests, rivers, grazing land, and so forth. They're communal property. And their management has not been conducted through private firms, the manipulations of private firms, or even the state. It's typically, or used to be typically, the local community. So those are, of course, non-profit. I mean, they don't call themselves non-profit. We use expressions like communitarian or rural enterprises and so forth. So the answer to your question, in my judgment, is a heck of a lot. Because either you do it through communitarian institutions or non-profit organ, or if it's profit-making firms, alter their profits through taxes to bring their profits in line with social profits. And so there is a deep connection, in my judgment, and I'm glad you asked this question, between sustainable development, which which the words, the moment you say something like sustainable, you immediately say nature, out there. Yes. Nature is underpriced, mostly. So there is a sense in which non-profit activities are aligned to sustainability for the reason that even if they are really profit, they're shadow profits, they're not private profits.